Today, we're looking at the Yukon. It has finally been released, and wow, just look at this camo, right? It's so Canadian. I love it. If you didn't know, I am from Canada, so I felt it appropriate to get this ship as well as this camouflage. But is this ship any good? And I'm gonna say yes, it is a very good ship, but there's a large problem with it, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But the good stuff, you get 380mm guns at tier 7, which is enough to overmatch most things that 406s and everything would overmatch at this tier, so you're not feeling that undergunned. The second thing you should notice is the dispersion, as you can see on this salvo. It is very, very, very good dispersion, in my mind. It, of course, is a battleship, and you're going to have bad salvos every once in a while, and I'll show some of those at the end that I've had against broadside cruisers and that kind of thing, where dispersion kind of screws me over. But overall, the dispersion is very good on this ship, and it kind of has to be, because the ship basically has no range. You get 15 kilometers, 15.7 kilometers of range on a battleship at tier 7. Of course, you can face tier 9s, and that is scary, facing tier 9s with that little range. You do get a spotter plane, so you can boost your range out to, 18 kilometers or so. Maybe a little farther, maybe close to 19, we'll see. But the range, of course, is a massive limiting factor. But on the other hand, you get amazing concealment. Look at this, 11.5 kilometers detection on a tier 7 battleship. That is really, really strong. Usually, battleships, destroyers, cruisers at tier 7 tend to have really bad concealment because they don't have access to that 5th upgrade slot, I believe, where you can get the concealment upgrade. That is a huge boost for tier 8 ships that tier 7 ships don't get. But for this ship to have such great base concealment is really, really nice. I am running Concealment Expert on this, so normally you're going to have in the mid-12s if you don't run Concealment Expert on this ship. The other really, really, really nice thing is the rudder shift. It's around a 9-second rudder on a battleship. So if you're used to playing Thunder with rudder or Conqueror with Legendary mod or Unique upgrade, you're going to feel right at home with this ship. It feels really, really, really nice. So the poor armor and relatively poor firing range is made up for by this rudder shift in my mind. You're able to dodge a lot of battleship salvos, assuming you're moving and you're not grounded on an island. But the rudder shift is very, 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 very nice. I really, really like it. It's very comfortable to use, and you're going to need to use it because you need to avoid, at all costs, eating citadels and eating torpedoes. Just like we talked about with the Conqueror, this ship has a super heal. So you can heal back a massive amount of damage. I actually didn't have flags on in this game, and we still have a 26,000 HP heal, which is pretty insane, right? We can get up over 30,000 HP of healing, and you get 4 heals. It's a massive amount of healing for this ship to have. The downside, of course, is that, well, you take a lot of damage. Having 25mm of plating everywhere, HE is going to pen you everywhere. Most battleships are going to overmatch you all the time, so shooting from stealth is always advised. You shouldn't be the first one pushing. You shouldn't, you really, really shouldn't be trying to just tank people. That is really, really bad. We'll see later in the game how you should be avoiding shots in this ship. You tend to want to bait people into shooting your broadside and then turn in and cut off the shells, kind of get a closer angle to them. The reload on this ship is a little slow. It's a little over 30 seconds, but for this accuracy, I think it's probably fine for tier 7. It doesn't feel that much worse than a 30-second reload. I don't really notice it all that much. You can see 18.8 kilometers with the spotter plane up. So you do have enough range some of the time. Of course, having 18 kilometers of range, 19 kilometers of range all the time is going to help more than just having a spotter plane, but to get this really good concealment and rudder shift, super heal, and decent dispersion, you can see not every salvo is a laser beam. I think it's worth it, honestly. I really, really have enjoyed my time with this ship for the most part. Like any ship, you are going to find yourself in scenarios where you just die, and I've had a few games like that, and that's mainly down to testing a ship out. Really, learning to play a ship is learning its limits, in my opinion. Once you know what the limits of a ship are, then you're going to get the most out of it, because you can constantly play right up close to those limits, and that's where the ship is going to be most effective. Of course, battleships at tier 7 are pretty strong against the cruisers at this tier, because the cruisers at this tier don't have a heal. Heals make cruisers insane and incredibly strong. So at tier 10, I think cruisers are amazing and very, very, very strong. Mid tiers, of course, they have to watch out a little bit more, but it still relies on RNG of you getting citadels and getting good dispersion, that kind of thing. We did not citadel the Ashitaka there, partially because of bad dispersion, but the other reason could be that we have short fuse AP. Just like a lot of the other British ships, your AP arms in half the amount of time normal AP does. This results in less overpens on cruisers. You still get a lot because most cruisers are pretty skinny, but if you get a little bit wider cruiser, you're gonna get full pens more often, which is really, really nice. And you can see having 380mm guns at this tier is enough to overmatch most of the other battleships you're going to be fighting. So it's one of the reasons that tier 7 battleship fights are pretty unfun. It's because everybody's overmatching everyone. And that's not the most engaging gameplay for battleship versus battleship. But if you're okay with that tier 7 kind of battleship feel, the Yukon is really, really good. I don't know if it's better than the Nelson. The, of course, benefit of being in a Yukon over a Nelson is that your citadel is not gigantic. This is an underwater or surface level citadel, so you're not going to have to worry about getting bow citadeled all the time by enemy battleships with 380mm guns and up. It's a really big, massive downside to the Nelson, but this ship doesn't have to worry about that, which is really, really, really nice. The ship also gets better concealment and lower caliber guns with worse HE. The HE on the ship really isn't that amazing. Just like the Monarch, these guns are very similar. They're not quite the same, but they're very similar guns. Your fire chance is only 34%, so you're not going to be this normal British battleship where you can just light fires at will, right? The unfortunate part about the Yukon is it's kind of competing with the King George at tier 7, the normal tech tree British battleship. And that ship is amazing because it has a faster reload than this, it has more guns, it has better HE, and it still gets a reasonably good concealment and okay rudder shift, but the DPM of the King George is amazing. And it also competes then with the Duke of York, which is also a very good battleship. Here you can see the rudder shift is very nice for dodging torpedoes. The thing about the Duke of York is you get improved AP pen angles, so you're not going to be bouncing nearly as much as you would be with a Yukon, or any other battleship for that matter. But, of course, the Duke of York and the King George don't get these big guns that overmatch at this tier. It's all trade-offs. And those tech tree and, well, Duke of York is almost a clone of the King George, but slightly slower reload with hydro and improved pen angles. You don't get this improved massive super heal, and this super heal is a ton of fun to use. We've already used one this game, but you're going to see it come in clutch over and over and over again. Just having that ability to heal back so much HP allows you to play a lot more aggressively. I talked about this in my Conqueror videos, but having a super heal on a battleship lets you get into positions much like the Smokewood on an Italian battleship, or maybe somewhat like Ohio and its fast cooldown heal. But the main thing about this heal is it allows you to heal up a massive amount of burst damage. Assuming you've taken mostly HE and fire damage, you're going to be healing massively, and people are going to have a really, really hard time killing you if you play the ship correctly. And to play this ship correctly, I think you want to be playing at ranges around 10 to 12 kilometers. That is kind of the sweet spot for this ship. Any closer and you're guaranteed to be spotted the whole time, so it's possible you get burst down by the enemy team because you can't disengage and go dark using that excellent concealment. But any farther than that, your ship starts to become less effective because the guns just aren't as good at long range, primarily because you just don't even have that much range. So the biggest thing holding me back from recommending you to buy this ship is the matchmaker, straight up. Like all tier 7 ships, you are going to be in a lot of tier 9 games. And the game I'm showing you here, I'm sure you've noticed, is a tier 7 game. And we're facing tier 5s and 6s. This is not the norm. This is a really, really good game. This is a great way to showcase the strengths of the Yukon, but I'm really not showing you much of the weaknesses of this ship. And there'll be a couple clips at the end to show a little bit more weaknesses in higher tier games, but getting overmatched by every battleship you're fighting is not the most enjoyable experience, that's for sure. And only having 15 kilometers, 15.7 kilometers of base range is not enough in tier 9 games. It really isn't. You're tending to over push just to get in range. That's at least what I found myself doing. And you're gonna have to be very disciplined if you buy this ship to not overcommit and over push just to get some shots in early game. You might find that for the first 7 or 8 minutes of a game, you just can't really shoot it much that consistently. Maybe there'll be some pot shots here and there that you can take, but that's the main issue with this ship, is in high tiers, having that really, really horrible range. It's going to put you into positions, if you're not careful, where you're just going to die very, very, very quickly. So I would actually recommend this ship if you're someone who's okay with that tier 7 experience. I really would. I have enjoyed most of my time with this ship so far. I might be a little biased because the camo speaks to me a little bit, but it's a decent ship still. I really do enjoy a somewhat accurate battleship. A lot of this accuracy comes from its Sigma. It's 1.9 Sigma, whereas most of the other British battleships have 1.8 Sigma. And if you don't know what Sigma is, that's just the tendency for the shells to go where you're aiming. Dispersion tells you the maximum ellipse size that your shells could go to, and the Sigma is the tendency to go to the middle of that ellipse, basically. So the higher the number, the better. Yamato has 2.1, and that's why it's one of the more accurate battleships. And ships like Kremlin and Kurfürst and Fuso, they all have very low Sigma. Christopher Colombo, for example, as well. Very, very, very low Sigma, and that's why they're not very accurate. But look at this heal coming in clutch. We barely survived, our team helping us out with that Bairn. But there's still a ton to do this game. But we actually have the health to be able to do it. We're going to be on half HP in 17 seconds. It's really, really, really good. I'm making the wrong turn here. I need to be just hard charging towards B. I'm not looking at the clock because they're going to win in 3 minutes. And I probably can't even get to the cap in 3 minutes at this point. But still, a high caliber game. We've already tanked 1.6 million potential damage. So this ship is not that squishy if you're playing at these mid-ranges, where you're using your rudder to dodge shells. And that's the big thing. You can see just how quickly I'm able to turn in, and these shells coming in just go right over my ship. It's really hard to hit a battleship that is constantly playing with its speed and its rudder. And because of that, I'm using propulsion mod on this ship as well. So I am always going to be messing with my rudder and my speed in this ship, and it's going to throw off battleships aim at longer ranges, and even some cruiser aim at longer ranges. And that's where the tankiness comes from. It's from its crazy maneuverability and the ability to heal back a lot of that lighter damage. Something we haven't talked about yet is anti-aircraft, and of course that is very, very important in the current meta of World of Warships. I got very lucky this game, right? On top of being top tier, also not to have to deal with an aircraft carrier. And let me tell you, the AA is horrible on this ship. You only have 5.2 kilometers of range, and there's basically no DPS or flak. It is really, 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 really bad. So if you're looking for a tier 7 battleship with good AA, you should probably be getting the Florida instead, if you're worried about playing in those CV games. Florida, of course, well known for its great accuracy, as well as range, and good AA. You just don't get the concealment, the rudder shift, the super heal that the Yukon has. And they're definitely very different ships. There's a lot of different tier 7 battleships at this point. There's a lot of diversity here. And Yukon, well, it's not the most groundbreaking. We've had ships with super heals like Nelson. We've had ships, tons of ships with 380mm guns. But this rudder shift is, I think, something new. And I really, really, really like it. Having a maneuverable battleship Feels really, really nice. Of course, you do need to make use of that maneuverability, otherwise that happens. You just get overmatched straight through your deck, bow, stern, superstructure, everything. People are just going to get tons of full pens on you. And we can't heal back full pens quite as much as HE damage, but that's okay. You're still going to get great use out of the super heals. You're still going to be reasonably tanky and a little bit difficult to take down. I was a little worried here. The reason I wasn't shooting is I was a little worried about dying too quickly without realizing that there's only like 45 seconds left on the clock and we need to kill this New York very, very quickly. So yeah, this one unfortunately is not going to end up in a win, but a really, really, really solid game with this ship. I think I could have done this with a lot of different tier 7 battleships. This is not an overpowered battleship. I think it's an enjoyable battleship though. Having good rudder shift, good concealment is nice. Having a super heal is also very nice. These are nice, convenient things to have. Having overmatch as well at tier 7 just feels much nicer, right? Things like Sharnhorse struggle because of its inability to overmatch. Ships like Gneisenau, right? Poor dispersion. This ship has great characteristics to it. It's not overpowered. It's just a good tier 7 battleship in my opinion. And that's the match. We end up with 4 kills and, well, how satisfied are you? I was satisfied with that one. That was a pretty fun game for the Yukon. And of course you're collecting fireproofs and dreadnoughts all over the place in this ship because, well, that super heal really does carry you through. Unfortunately, you're not getting flags anymore, which I'm not a huge fan of. Now, here's a bit of the problem with dispersion. You're just gonna sometimes land on either side of the ship, sometimes it's gonna go high, sometimes it's gonna go low, and you're gonna struggle to kill an enemy cruiser. And that's just the way it goes. That's the battleship life. You know, we hit 6 shells, they just went a little bit high, unfortunately. And this is the problem with this ship. It's still a battleship, and it's a very squishy battleship when you don't have a super heal available. Yes, I'm gonna be able to tank and deal with a lot of this incoming damage coming in, but we're facing higher tiers here. This is a tier 9 game, and look at how I'm getting absolutely crushed by enemy battleships that I can't even shoot at. They're outside of my range, a destroyer's spotting me permanently, the aircraft carrier's coming in. This is some of the Yukon experience. This is some of the tier 7 battleship experience. And this is where I'm going to say, you're going to put yourself in situations where you're just going to get killed far too quickly just to try and do a little bit of damage. I've only done 11,000 damage this game. And, you know, we're not even that far in. We're almost at the 13-minute mark there, right? So not even 8 minutes into this match, I've done almost nothing, and I'm about to die. And I won't lie, this was very, very frustrating for me. And I really wanted to show you guys this clip at the end, just so that you're aware of what this ship can have happen to it. And honestly, it's no different than other tier 7 battleships. You do have to deal with the limited range, but you get better concealment than other tier 7 battleships, and you get the spotter plane and a super heal, so it's just the tier 7 battleship experience. Of course, one of the issues with having a Yukon is that you're actually not going to have that many commanders, because you're in the Commonwealth area, and if you don't have that many ships in this area, you're not going to have a very strong captain. So I'm only running a 14-pointer, but this is the build I currently have. I think I probably would get rid of Gunfeeder if I was to redo this commander, because I've found I'm just not using the HE. It's really, really not that good. But Vigilance to try and dodge those torpedoes, something you probably would maybe want to get instead. It's tough, because you really don't want to eat torpedoes, but your turret traverse is very, very bad. You get a 45-second base turret traverse, and that's very slow for this tier. So maybe boosting it with Grease the Gears might help a little bit. Adrenaline Rush, I think, is a must for your first, third 3-point slot, because with these super heals, you can very easily maintain your ship at low HP. So you can just constantly have a reload buff by using your Adrenaline Rush. So constantly staying around 50% HP is going to give you a 10% reload buff. That's huge. Running Concealment as well as Emergency Repair Expert. I think those are pretty standard as the first two 4-pointers. And this is what I would run as a 14-point commander, because that's all I have. I'd probably switch to emergency repair specialist just to get those heals back up just that little bit extra sooner. Maybe that would help you live in a few situations. Grease the gears or vigilance, both very good options in my opinion. Once I get 18 points, of course, I'm going to go fire prevention to try and, well, prevent fires, right? You still die to fires even though you have a super heal. I think having fire prevention is just kind of a must. Here we get propulsion mod. Of course, you could run rudder shift and get maybe a 7 or 6 second rudder shift. Something crazy like that. But I think having both a good rudder and good acceleration is better than just really, really insane rudder. There's a few more scenarios where you can slow down and then speed up and then slow down and turn in and all that good stuff to dodge things. Aiming systems, damage control system, and main armaments mod 1. I think you have to take spotter. Don't take fighter on this one unless you're seeing a ton of CVs and you're playing alone a lot, like off on flanks, that kind of thing. But if you see a CV, try to play around your teammates because this AA is horrible. It's really, really, really bad. But yeah, that's the Yukon. I have enjoyed my time with this ship. I don't know if it's worth buying because it's not cheap and you get tier 7 matchmaker. But it's a fun ship, and if you're Canadian like me, this extra camo is an extra 2,000 doubloons. But I like it. I think it's worth it. I've gotten it for both the Canadian ships, and I quite like them. So that is the Yukon. Hope you guys enjoyed this look at it and my thoughts on this ship. And yeah, hope you have a great day.